I want to briefly review some things from our last gathering. Things we only hear once, we usually forget, unless it's someone saying, "I love you." That usually lingers a while. But anything else we hear only once, we usually forget. We looked briefly at 2nd and 3rd John, and you remember that we pointed out that the word true and truth occurs 12 times in those two tiny letters written by a man on the edge of the grave. The only one of the 12 not martyred. But in the same letters, he talks about Diotrephes, who longs to be first and who casts people out of the church, who's very arrogant. It's very significant that wherever in the epistles there's a second epistle, like 2nd John, 2nd Peter, 2nd Timothy, 2nd Corinthians, always talks about apostasy to come. Number 2 in the Bible represents division. Second day, the earth is divided from the waters, Genesis 1. Number 2 in the Bible represents division. Every time you have a second epistle, it talks about divisions coming in the Christian church because of apostasy. And the book of Revelation is going to have the horrible revelation that most of Christianity will apostatise. Shouldn't shock us, because God's people, when the Messiah came, were so much into apostasy that they crucified their Messiah. God's people crucified their Messiah. The last book of the Bible is going to tell us that in the last days, most of professed Christendom will become apostate and persecutors of the few who will not conform. So 2nd John and 3rd John are a gentle running up, as if to say, truth is going to be challenged. Will you stand by the truth, or will you be like Diotrephes, so puffed up with arrogance, determined to be first, thinking only of himself? John is saying, clouds are on the horizon, the world's going to be in great trouble, the church is going to be in great trouble. Will you stand for the truth? Psychiatrists and psychologists tell us that we all have a predilection for cruelty. This is a hard saying, who can hear it? But it is demonstrated when people get into authority. When people get into authority, we see illustrated the dictum of Lord Acton, that all power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It is very, very difficult to have power and not fall into the trap of cruelty. 50 million martyrs, say some historians, died as a result of that predilection during the Dark Ages. That's more than twice the population of Australia. So the Bible is saying to us, as it works up to the book of Revelation, truth is going to be the issue in the coming crisis of the world. Will you stand for the truth or not? What will you do about those who claim and wrongly use authority? Well, Mr. Worldly Wise Man would say, be in the middle of the road, don't be extreme. Be moderate, be a neutral. But actually, the middle of the road is not the safest place to be. Try it on the highway. You recall that when Dante wrote the Inferno, one of the greatest books ever written, a graphic description of his idea of what hell would be like. Not biblical. But the first people he meets when he goes down to hell are the neutrals. You remember Bobby Burns said, in our world there aren't a lot of very, very, very wicked people, but there are a lot of very, very, very weak people. And so 2 John and 3 John and then the book of Revelation are asking the readers, are you going to be weak in a time of crisis? How will you react to wrong authority? Will you stand for truth or will you buckle? Are you going to be neutral? People that don't have strong convictions, people who are not committed to truth as they know it, lead very empty lives and ultimately very lonely lives. The only way to have a satisfying life is to be committed to what we think is true and vital. And so 2 John and 3 John are working up to that.